frankly, 6-6 isn't good enough, and we didn't see an advantage to waiting to the end. Frank,
And those were the words said not too long ago in the Willie Taggart era. And you have to say, well, where are we now, and why aren't we maybe hearing this today? Well, we know why, because it's a massive, massive contract and more. Well, welcome back to Seminoles Sideline 365. I am KB. The old man is out until Thursday, so I wanted to give my recap and thoughts following the horrible loss to UNC, but something that I called. I said we wouldn't win the game, so I'm not too surprised because, like I said, I've seen no semblance of any kind of offensive execution. And I said that we would need to score at least 21 plus points to even have a chance at the game. And once again, we didn't even come close, scoring 11 points altogether on a horrible, horrible, horrible offensive day. And on the day, it looked like many players quit, some on the defensive side of the ball, but just altogether a terrible, terrible performance where you together put up, what was it, only almost less than 200 yards to get combined on the day, almost just 200 yards offensively on the day and 11 points. So we'll get into that. I don't even want to recap the game. You probably heard there's really nothing much to recap if we're being honest with each other, right? It's been the same. It's been the same story every week. You kind of even don't need to watch the games anymore because you know what to expect. Poor offensive execution, drop balls, missed passes, poor run blocking, offense line breakdown, pressure on the quarterback over and over and over, turnovers, bad throws, guys on the same play sheet, and then a defense that eventually crumbles, missed tackles, lack of guys making business decisions, guys who haven't played well all year, not playing well, lack of hustle, the same themes that have gone on the entire season played out on Saturday. So once again, wasn't surprised. It was expected in my eyes. To expect this team to turn it on or to surprise you or to magically pull together an offense shouldn't. You shouldn't expect these things anymore. And if you are, then I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to happen. And this isn't negativity. We've been saying this now. I've at least been saying this now for the last 5 weeks. And some other sites where Florida State's going to figure it out, they're going to figure it out. Luke will turn this around. No, and I said about Luke. Luke could be a great player, but he doesn't see the field yet. He's still developing. He's a true freshman. He went 2 of 7, and his eyes aren't there yet. He's not seen the field for what it is. And I think honestly, Brock is a better quarterback. Brock's eyes. This is how I compare the two. Brock has better vision, but he doesn't have the physical talent that Luke does. Luke physically is a better quarterback. He's got a better arm. He's faster. And when he sees an opening, he can deliver the football. The problem with Luke is he doesn't have the vision yet. He's not quick enough to make the progressions and see the field as well as Brock can. And the reason that is because he's a true freshman. Brock's had a year under his belt. Brock has been thrust into positions before. He's developed as a quarterback. And he's seen those. And that's the thing, the disconnect I have with the fan base is that everyone wants Luke to be thrown in there, Luke to take command, But Luke isn't there yet. Luke isn't this 5-star phenom who could just walk on the field and it just clicks for him. Because one, he doesn't trust his offensive line, which he shouldn't because he's always constantly running for your life. Whether it's Brock or Luke, they're constantly having to run for their life. So he doesn't have the luxury of being a 5-star quarterback and just sitting back there and scanning the field. So basically his progression has to speed up. And two, his eyes aren't there yet to quickly, rapidly analyze the field like he is a veteran quarterback. So that's not me shitting on him. That's just me telling it like it is. And I think Luke, like I said, he has the better physical traits that you want in a quarterback. He's tall, he's fast, he has a great arm. He just needs the pieces around him. Right now, I think Brock is the better quarterback because he's had the year to develop. He has the eyes, he has the vision. And maybe his arm talent isn't like Luke's, but he can at least put it where it needs to be. Neither quarterback is gonna be able to win games with the pieces around them, though. These are two quarterbacks that, if given the same pieces next year, aren't gonna win 2 or 3 games, and that's not on them. That's on Florida State's offensive line. That's on the real receivers. That's on the tight ends. That's on the coaching staff and the play calling. That's not on these quarterbacks. I think these quarterbacks should go to other programs and be just fine. They will be just fine if they decide to leave. And honestly, I wouldn't knock them for doing that if I'm being totally honest, because this program is a complete shit show right now, and nobody can argue with me on that. Nobody can argue with, or if you say that, no one can argue with you on that. Mike Norvell's made history many times this season, whether it was losing to Duke for the first time, or losing to Mac Brown for the first time, or having the worst Florida State ACC record ever. This is something that us as fans are going to have to, acknowledge and say, people who have defended Mike Norvell, love Mike Norvell for what he's done for this program, we have to acknowledge these things. And we have to say, can Mike turn this around? Is he capable of managing something that has become this low? This isn't a Pitt turnaround. This isn't a, people on Twitter will say, well, look at the other programs that were able to turn. And I even kind of said this last week, but the more I analyze this, I don't think it's that easy anymore. Because you look at Pitt, you look at, what were the other programs we mentioned last week that kind of turned things around? But those are the things that some FSU fans will mention. They're like, Narduzzi, he was 3-9. He fired his entire offensive staff, opened the door for players, altered his NIL distribution program. Now they're 7-0. Da da da. Well, they just lost this past weekend. And I did mention that Pitt football hadn't played anybody this entire season up until this point. And that's played into the record. Not to take anything away from Narduzzi, I think he's done a great job of bringing in the right pieces for them to go 7-0. Because once again, we've seen even with the bad competition we play, we can even win games. But they did just take their worst loss of the season against a ranked team against SMU this past weekend, 48-25. They got blistered by SMU. And I expect them to not beat Clemson and not beat Louisville, who are they're finally playing ranked teams. But they beat North Carolina. We can't beat North Carolina. So I can't call the kettle black here, right? But with that, I don't think this is even a Pitt turnaround, because Pitt gave us a little bit of trouble last season when we had a really great team. The cupboard seems pretty bare for Florida State right now. I think this rebuild for Florida State is going to be incredibly hard for Mike Norvell, because you're not just talking about overhauling the staff and your scheme and bringing in the right guys. I mean, you're going to have to, you're going to have to bring in double-digit players from the portal, and you're not going to be able to miss on them like you did this season. I mean, there was a massive misses on the transfer portal this season, and you can't afford to miss. You're going to have to bring in more players than you did last season, which was, I believe, double digits. But your hit rate is going to have to be even higher, and that's the part that scares me. So you're going to have to not only have new players, new coaches, but you have to new players with those new coaches with those players, and your hit rate in the portal has to be even better than it was last season. Because this season it's been terrible. Your hit rate on transfers, and you brought in what you had. Let's see, how many transfers did you have in last year? If anyone knows it, comment in and correct me if I'm wrong. But you had, 10, 14 plus. Of course, none of these sites give me a great number off the top, but 15 plus transfers in. You may have to get 20 plus transfers in, 25 plus transfers in, because I believe you'll get a lot of you'll have to cut or get some people to leave, but you're going to have to bring in a lot of talent onto this team that either A, fit the new offensive scheme for the new offensive coordinator that you have to bring in, and B, defensive players, the new defensive coordinator that I believe will be coming in as well. So you're talking about changing the entire philosophy of this Florida State program come December, because we know Mike Norvell is not capable of firing anybody right now, even though he said recently that he is willing to change. Like acknowledge for the first time that he is willing to make changes. But this rebuild may be even beyond what Mike Norvell is capable of doing. Now, I do want to acknowledge Mike Norvell did take this team from, a team that couldn't win an ACC title, that struggled under Willie Taggart. And people say we owe Willie Taggart an apology. No, nobody owes Willie Taggart an apology. He wasn't successful at Florida State, and he wasn't successful at FAU, which is why he got fired. Nobody owes Willie Taggart an apology and thinks that if he stayed, he would have been great here. No, that's not true. Because he wasn't successful here, he wasn't successful at FAU, which is why he got 2 buyouts. And now he's living large with the Baltimore Ravens as an assistant coach. So he doesn't get owed an apology. He got the best deal of all time. I mean, he just got paid money to leave both places, and he doesn't have to work in if he didn't want to. He just got the Harbaugh connection, and so he can just follow him around for the rest of his life if he wants to, or just retire. So no. But what Mike Norvell did, and I will give credit for, is struggled in the beginning of his career, taking over a program which wasn't right, built it up to a 10-win team, and then an ACC undefeated regular season team, ACC title, and then it fell off a cliff. But I will acknowledge what he did right. Now, did he build it the right way? Did he build a solid foundation? No. And that is evident, because if you build a solid foundation of a program, you don't fall off a cliff. You just reload. You don't have to rebuild. The programs that build the right way, the Texases, the Georgias, programs like that, Ohio States, programs like that don't fall off a cliff from season to season. They may stumble 1 or 2 games, but every year they're competitive. And it's because they built a solid foundation in recruiting, whether it's high school or transfer portal. Whether they lose a coach, they're able to replace them with the right person. They're able to game plan around their personnel and put them in the right positions to succeed. And that's where Mike Norvell has struggled. He has struggled to adapt to the personnel he has. He has struggled with evaluations across multiple positions, and he struggled holding people accountable, both on his coaching staff and with his personnel on the field. Too many times I feel like he said, this falls on me. No, Mike, it does fall on you, but it also falls on the players on the field because they have to execute. Too many times I feel he has not held players accountable for their performances. And I know you shouldn't do that publicly, but at some point, players either have to hear it publicly, or they need to feel it publicly by not being put on the depth chart or not starting a game. Example in point, why is Patrick Payton still starting week to week? Do you feel like he's giving it his all? Do you feel like Patrick Payton deserves to be a starter on this football team right now? Do you feel like Shaheem Brown should be on the football field for a majority of snaps? Do you feel like he's giving it his all? I don't. And you could say this about many players on this team right now. But the guys you've paid out to, some of the highest paid players on the team, are not giving you their full effort. They're definitely not making an impact on this team. I mean, you can look at the depth chart right here. Patrick Payton listed top of the DN chart. I don't think he deserves that. Do you think Marvin Jones Jr. deserves to be the starter on the other side of him? I don't think so. I think Byron Turner probably does. He's a guy that's fought in this program for almost 3 or 4 years, and I think gives effort. He may have less upside than Marvin Jones does, but I think he gives the effort. I'm tired of guys who don't consistently give effort being on the top of the depth chart. That's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of guys who can't perform consistently being on the top of the depth chart. And that's how you hold players accountable. And Mike Norvell has not done that the entire season. You could say the same of the coaching staff. And now we can have the debate of, do you fire coaches in the middle of the season? What does that actually accomplish? Well, I think whether or not it accomplishes the goal of finding the right replacement, I think at minimum, and he said, and I don't totally disagree with it. He said, he would only do that if it wouldn't negatively impact the players of those reporting to that coach. And at some point, I do understand that. He doesn't want, if getting rid of a coach is going to negatively impact that player, then he doesn't want to get rid of them in terms of the middle of the season. And this is the quote right here. Norvell, and if there's any value in relieving a coaching seat, I feel it's the best thing to do is to make a change because the leader has a negative impact on the player. If I see the pullback, we all have the answer to ourselves. If I felt that it's the best part of the program because of the negative effect to the player, I'd make the change. I'm evaluating everything. I've already evaluated a lot of things. Now, once again, that's a lot of word salad. He says the word negative about, a couple of times in there, evaluated a couple of times. I've already evaluated a lot of things. But once again, it's a lot of words, and we've seen zero actions this season. We've seen zero change this season. This team somehow seems to get worse every week instead of even an inch better. So that's why people cringe at quotes like this, and you see comments like word salad and, can he relieve himself? So he's not going to do anything. This is why people pull back from this statement, because we've seen no actions, and we've seen no change, and we've seen no progression in this program from the depths of hell that it's in right now. We've seen no growth. And when you see no growth, you have to find what's causing that. You have to do something to spur growth. And that is action, right? Take action to spur growth, because nothing is happening right now. Nothing is happening inside of this program to cause any type of positive growth or performance change. And that's why people want to see somebody, they want to see their pound of flesh. They want to see somebody let go, to be held accountable for what's happening. And now, like I said, that may not impact who you're going to eventually replace them with, but it tells the fans this isn't acceptable. It tells the players this isn't acceptable. That person is gone because they did not live up to the standard. And that goes for why would Patrick Payton get benched? Because he's not living up to the standard of performance. I don't care how much he gets paid in NIL. If he's not playing to the standard, he gets his ass benched. That would go for any player, no matter if they make $1 or $2 million in NIL. You don't play up to the standard of us, you get your ass benched. And now the player may say, well, I don't care. I get paid anyway. Okay, great. With that attitude, you will never play for this program again. Get your check and get out. Because I'm not giving you any more tape. Good luck getting to the next level with no tape and that attitude. But no, that standard has not been set. That culture has not been set at Florida State. And you need coaches who will enforce that type of attitude at Florida State. And that's why people are frustrated. And when I see the depth chart for another day, and like I just showed you, you don't see much of that change, do you? You see the same guys, the same players. Shaheem Brown, Marvin Jones, Patrick Payton, you see the same guys over and over starting. There's nothing to spur change. No one getting new opportunity. Nothing changing. And that's why you get the same damn results every single week. Every single week. And it's hard to watch as a fan. It's, I've sort of emotionally disconnected from it at this point. Like, I really don't care anymore for this season, at least. Because I expect the same thing. I'm sure you're probably the same way. I mean, you probably watch the game. I mean, I watch on mute most of the time because I'm like, I don't need to hear what the announcers say. Because I probably already said it myself. But you kind of expect the same thing. Like, there's always, as a fan, you're always like, will this be the drive we do something? Will this be the drive we hit a big play? Will this be the drive it clicks? But that's sort of been beaten out of me this season. I know it's not going to click because nothing has changed. The same roster, the same starters, the same playbook, the same game plan every single week. Offense, defense, nothing's changed. And and that's it. So, and now you're going into Notre Dame on the road, top 5 team. Good luck, right? Good luck. We'll talk about that later in the week, but I can't expect the best there, right? Can't expect the best there. Now there were some interesting quotes after the North Carolina game. Neither quarterback played great, like I said. I think it's not fair for fans to expect Luke to come in and revamp his offense or give it a spark. Like I said, he has his great physical traits as a true freshman. I think Brock is the better choice if you're trying to win ball games. I think Brock is the better choice just based on his eyes and how he sees the field quickly, because of how you need to see it quickly behind this offensive line. But if you're purely trying to develop your next quarterback, then give Luke the snaps. I just hate this merry-go-round of quarterbacks where Brock gets 2 drives, and then if he doesn't score a touchdown, he gets pulled, and Luke gets the next 3 quarters, and then Brock gets garbage time again. I just don't understand this carousel, like where Brock's supposed to come in and score the first 2 drives, and if he doesn't, then Luke comes in, gets this longer leash, and then Brock comes in to clean up the game again. I don't understand that. The scheme, the strategy behind that at all. Give them 2 quarters. Give them 2 consistent full quarters to give them in some rhythm. Do that, please. Once again, nothing seems strategic about this team or this coaching decision-making at all. Nothing. Now, talking about other quotes from Mike Norvell. He said in his press conference here, I don't think the team quit. I think they got caught up in the negative things that happened. Once again, word salad. If they got caught up in the negative things that happened, doesn't that indicate that they probably quit or gave up? If they got caught up in the negative, that they weren't able to persevere. Doesn't Mike Norvell always talk about adversity and working through adversity and not quit? That is the definition of quit. Like, if they get caught up in the negative things that happen and don't persevere and don't fight through the adversity, then they quit. I mean, I think we saw that on the field. So, like, this is where Mike does not hold people accountable and say, yes, I saw people who quit out there, and they will not be on the field going forward. That is what people want to see out of Mike. A man that they can respect because he talks truth and doesn't bullshit and give word salad every week. They don't want to see preacher Mike, who's just trying to be positive all the time and paint this narrative that everything's going to be okay. Mike, it's not okay. The house is burning down. The house is burning down. Quick actions need to be made. The house is burning down. You have to take quick action. We need a leader. We don't need a hopeful guidance. We need actions, not words. And this is the word salad that frustrates so many people. And I understand why. And I totally understand why. And then we saw some other great quotes from members of the staff. This one was hilarious to me. I don't know if people saw this. Atkins says he is learning how to manage some evals better from his experience. He said this year is a lesson, have to learn from it so it doesn't repeat itself. Absolutely, he says it's absolutely is a learning experience, going through things, good decisions, bad ones, good evals, bad evals. What? What? That is the most. That quote is the most. This is the guy that has probably one of the worst offensive lines in the country. Has never sent a offensive lineman to the draft while at Florida State in his 4 or 5 years. Will not be sending anyone from this team, as far as I can tell from this line. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. No one on this line right now is going to the NFL. Even if he's not here in 3 years, none of these players are going to the NFL from this line. He says that absolutely it is a learning experience, going through things, good decisions, bad ones, good evals. Where are the good evals? Where are the good evals, Alex? Because I'm waiting for 5 of them to be on the line every week. You've been here almost 5 years, and we're waiting for your good evals to get on the line and start making blocks and start making plays. Where are the good evals? Alex, that's what I would have said to him. Can you give us some examples of your good evaluations in recruiting? Outside of a handful of one-year transfers, you could say, from last year who left, you had a couple of one-year guys, 2-year guys. No one that you were able to recruit through high school, develop. Where are those guys? Where are those good evals? Where are the guys from the 2021, 2022, 23 class, majority of them who are no longer with the program? Can you give us some example? Where are those Where are those guys? Were those all bad evals? Would you say the majority of your signees were bad evals, bad decisions? What is your good eval hit rate, Alex? Is it 5%, 10%? How would you eval your current offensive line, Alex? How would you eval them, these starting 5 each week? That's what I would ask. Give me an evaluation of your offensive line right now, because that will tell me even more than that statement. But to say it's a learning experience right now, going through these things. Alex, this has been the entire, even last year, our offensive line wasn't great. And this is why, too, once again, people in the comments are just flabbergasted at statements like this. He's getting paid $2 million. He got a raise for never sending a guy to the NFL. For having an average plus offensive line at Florida State. For producing what we see on the field every single week. It feels like I'm living in a nightmare or a Looney Tune land where coaches at Florida State who underperform, get, unbelievable contracts. Only one player that he's recruited through high school is currently starting on the line. And that's Jalen Early, who so far, in my opinion, grade-wise, we'll say whatever, I don't think he's looked phenomenal. And that may be unfair, But so far, I don't think Jalen Early looks like a dominant offensive lineman who's going to be a guy who's going to be able to carry Florida State for the next 2 years. He doesn't look like Jordan Seaton at Colorado. A guy that, once again, Florida State, Atkins, and the staff couldn't land over Colorado. Those are the guys, Jordan Seaton's are the guys we're not landing. Those are good evals. Those are good evals that you couldn't land. And that's why we're in the hole we're in. And that's why you're a 22.5-point underdog to Notre Dame next week. That's why you're losing to UNC and giving Mac Brown his first win against FSU. Because you've had too many bad evals that you signed, and the good evals you couldn't sign. That's the issue, Alex. We don't need you learning on the job. We need someone who knows how to do the job and can execute the game plan and execute in recruiting and can do it all. We don't need someone who needs training wheels while trying to operate within at FSU. FSU is in a trade school where you learn. It's a place where you execute and you do it well and you do it at a high level. That's why that statement is kind of insulting. You shouldn't be learning while at FSU. I know you may say, well, it's a learning experience. Failure is a learning experience. Got it. But this is a coach who had never worked at the Power 4 level as a coach. And Mike Norvell, that's on him for hiring Alex Atkins from Charlotte to this position because he had never had to recruit, develop, coach at this level before. And you could say that about other coaches on the staff as well that Mike hired. Mike had never done it either. And I've said this before. I think this is a underexperienced staff. And I think some of them may be over their head at Florida State. Maybe Mike is. The only thing I can't take away from Mike is that he did get an ACC title. You could say, well, Wake Forest has an ACC title. Dave Grobe got an ACC title. Where is he now? So, but is this staff over their head? Is Mike Norvell capable of one of the biggest college football rebuilds of all time? I don't know, man. But these statements, like I said, I don't expect Alex Atkins to be here next year because of things he said. He's made too many bad evals, and those bad evals are not able to start on this offensive line. And you rely on guys who have been here 4 years and are just average or below average. And it's a major reason why you can't operate a competent offense, among other things. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But you're going to see as things start to crank up, pressure starts to crank up, you're going to see some of these statements start to slip out. Less of the word salad and more statements like this where you're like, really? That's what you think? Because today is the first day, too, that we heard, and once again, it's more BS word salad. But this is the first time we've heard Mike acknowledge that change is going to happen. I can't believe after going 1-7, 1-6, 1-5, that this is the first time Mike Norvell has actually acknowledged change. But he did today during the interview.
I do believe in that group, and it's been a really tough season, and I mean, like I said, for our fan base, I mean, I understand the frustration. I mean, there's no fan that's more frustrated than I am. Right? There's nobody that's pouring more into what these players in this program than what our staff is. And I watch the work, and has it been good enough? No. It hasn't. We haven't had the results that any of us desire, or that what needs to be expected here. But we are going to pour all that we have into making sure for these games to finish the season. It's the best that we got, and we put ourselves in a position to go achieve success in these next 3 games. And it all starts going on the road this week. And on the flip side of it, I am aware of where we are. The things that have happened, some of the things that that I'm evaluating throughout the course of the season, or evaluating over the course of the last few years of, one, why did this happen? Why have we come up short? And then what are the issues and what can be done, changed, addressed? All of it that's going to allow us to take a monumental step, here this next year and for the future of the program. And, I do
I'm
believe.
going to stop right there because I do think he said something there that is important. He said, I'm going to look back at this year, but not just this year, past years that led up to this. Something in that vein. And I think that is very important. And I'm glad that he's in that mindset because this wasn't just an overnight change that led to this failure of this season. It was 2 to 3 years in the making. Because if you look at last season and you looked at the depth chart, you said, okay, we're going to lose key guys in key positions. And we're either going to have to hit majorly in the transfer portal with key guys that can replace them in our major hits, because the recruiting class we've had does not backfill them properly. We didn't have studs at linebackers, and I think the linebacker group has played okay this year, and I keep liking what I'm seeing from Omar Graham, guys like that. But linebacker group, offensive line, I'll keep saying on. Groups like that, you could see the roster and like guys you're losing like Gibbons, veteran guys like that who were hits and were capable at their position. But you said years after years, this offensive line wasn't elite. It was, okay, average to average plus. And you said, well, we're going to lose veterans like Gibbons and Turnstile. You're going to lose guys like that. Who's going to fill their positions? It's not these high school guys have to be ready. If they're not, why aren't they ready? It's because evals, like Atkins said, have been bad. They haven't turned out. Many of them haven't turned out because we're still using the same linemen we have been for 3+ years, and they're still average because no one's been able to compete with them and surpass them. And you could say the same thing about the receiver group. You lost you knew you were going to lose 2 massive receivers, and nobody else around them was able to step up. You said we have a bunch of young guys that have no stats, and they've never shown that ability to step up. And this year, nobody has stepped up outside of reliable Jagai, but nobody has stepped up. Nobody is capable of making big plays. And you could have looked at that group and said, what has Dugan's done to develop our receivers? Has he done enough? Has he recruited well enough? Has he brought in studs? Has his evals been good? You look at the defensive line. You knew you were going to lose Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, 2 transfers that you hit on. But you knew you were going to lose them, and you had to say, is the roster you have capable of replacing them? Have you recruited well enough to develop and put guys that can replace that performance? Is Patrick Payton good enough to do it by himself when he's not getting one-on-one treatment? Is he the player without Jared Verse on the other end of him? Or Braden Fisk causing trouble in the middle? Can the guys behind him compete to make him better or surpass him? And the answer has been no. And that's where Mike Norvell wasn't able to see this trend of lack of competitive recruiting and recruiting from the high school ranks to compete and push the floor up, as well as the portal. Like, this was a culmination of years. And not holding those coaches accountable for massive misses on the recruiting trail, because you did miss out on some one-on-one battles. You were in the top 2 for many guys, 5-star guys. Like we talked about, Jordan Seaton, that went to Colorado. That would have been a huge grit for Florida State on the offensive line. That's an instant impact guy. You haven't gotten those instant impact guys. You've gotten guys that need 2-3 years of development, and then you hope that they're ready to play, and most of them are not. And so I'm glad he's taken a full picture view, but he should have been doing this from all along. He should have seen this storm coming and held coaches accountable before this year. Because he could have seen the waves getting bigger and bigger and the storm, the waves about to crash on him. Or seen the storm brewing before it came and hit land. This was coming. This was coming. I didn't know it was going to be this bad. I did not think it was going. I knew it was going to be tough this season. I thought we were going to be good enough to win games. I didn't think it was going to be gross incompetence, though. I did not predict that. And I did buy into some of the hype that we were able to do it last year. And hopefully we hit enough in the portal to do it this year. But I was dead wrong on that. I did buy into the hype. But I knew the offensive line wasn't going to be good enough. And I knew that these receivers, we were going to have to hope that one of them stood up, and they did it. And that's a culmination of many years of just not getting that guy, relying on the port. So I'm not going to keep repeating it. But you guys, if you look back, I'm glad he's looking back and studying what coaches are responsible, who did I hold accountable, and who needs to go. And I think we all know who needs to go. I'm not going to keep repeating it.
Believe in the guys that are in that locker room, right? I do believe in the potential of what we have. We've got to do a better job of making sure that, the application of the things that we work, the things that we train, the things that we do, the evaluation of, how the positions we're putting guys in, and, sometimes the guys that, that we have, where can we improve that? And, all those factors are going to be, I guess, continue to be evaluated. And then, I can tell you that there's going to be, there's going to be a change in what we've seen from this year to this next year coming up. But, and right now my entire focus is going to be on what's ahead for these next.
Yeah, I mean, it's more word salad. There's going to be change from this season. Obviously, Mike, I mean, he's finally acknowledged it. There's going to be change. Well, obviously, change is going to be new players, new quarterback. There's always change in every season. Like it's a bullshit response, but he's finally acknowledged there's going to be change. That change could be one. The change needs to be not just one coach; it needs to be many coaches. The change needs to be new starters, new competition, overhaul. It may just have to be like a Dion at Colorado year one type of overhaul. It could be 30 plus new players. I don't, that's not totally out of the picture for me. It really is going to depend who those new offensive coordinator is, potentially who the new defensive coordinator. I still don't know how he feels about Fuller, but I think Fuller's evaluations and Odell's evaluations obviously have to be put up in the microscope. They haven't done a good enough job. And so those coaches may decide, I need my own guys in here because the evaluations and the players you have on this roster, there is no potential there. Unlike what Mike's saying. Mike says he sees potential. There are some guys on this roster that probably have potential. But do they have potential to win us a national championship? Probably not. Are these guys capable of pushing us to another 12-win season? Or being, starters on the national championship winning team? I don't know. I don't think all the if you look at our roster again, our starting depth chart, I would say half of those guys probably aren't starters on Texas, Georgia, Notre Dame. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, right? So I would not be ruling a massive, not just of coaches, but of roster overhaul this offseason. Honestly, I would welcome it because when you go 1-8, you can't throw anything out of the picture. I mean, like I said, this isn't a Pitt turnaround. This is unheard of. This is going to be an unheard of. Drastic moves have to be made because this isn't just you changing out your quarterback or changing out your defensive coordinator because you need to change up the scheme. No, this is. If Mike Norvell is not willing to do the drastic changes, this will be his legacy for the rest of his career. Is how he imploded the Florida State program after building it. After he inherited a broken program, drove it into the ground, won an ACC championship, and then imploded it again. That will be his legacy, and that's what people will remember. People will not remember his ACC championship game, his win. They will remember him for this season and nothing after. So he has to make the most drastic changes to spur growth. So I don't think anything is off the table. I don't think anything is off the table. And it may be him kicking in money to go get the best assistants possible. Mike, if you're really serious about your legacy and you being the biggest fan of Florida State football, why don't you chip in some money too? You say you're the biggest fan. Fans are always getting begged for NIL collective money. Why don't you kick in some of your $60 million plus contract if you're the biggest fan of Florida State football? And go help us get the best assistants possible or build the best collective possible. But like I said, let's see what he's willing to do, what change he is willing to make for this program. And now the last thing, I thought this was funny on Twitter. Guy says, one of the biggest moves FSU must make in the offseason isn't just staff or portal players. It's also getting out that Bama game. You have to start the year off with off a win next year. Front load your schedule with easy out of conference wins. Get the new team some confidence. I mean, I don't think it's the dumbest thing. See if you can get out of the Alabama game, because I mean Alabama hasn't looked like the old Alabama, but they're still obviously a very, very, very talented team. That if they met today, if 6-2 Alabama met Florida State today, they would beat Florida State by 30 plus points, right? Just due to all the talent they have. Now, this isn't Nick Saban Alabama, but they still have 4 or 5 stars all across the board. And that is going to be a hell of a game to start your year off with. This isn't Georgia Tech. This is Alabama. And all eyes will be on you in this roster, in your change. And I also think that has to weigh on Mike Norvell's mind, is that you're going to start next season under the spotlight once again. And everyone's going to be asking, what changes did Florida State make going into 2026? Going into the 2026 season. Because you're not playing FCS school to start the season. You're not playing, Jackson, or not, I can't even say anything. You're not playing Austin P to begin week 0 under the radar on the ACC network. No, you're starting in prime time once again. So all eyes will be on Florida State, and all Florida State does is make an OC change or a defensive coordinator change, and then gets blown out by Bama. Well, Mike Norvell will be squarely once again on the hot seat, all over the media, and I think there's a high chance that he potentially could get bought out. I mean, I think starting next season, that's when buyout conversations will actually start being real, even though it's still going to be very expensive. If they don't play well against Bama and make drastic changes going into that game, I think the conversations may actually start being real, but we'll see. So I thought this was funny. I think Florida State obviously doesn't get out of this game, but it's a hell of a way to start the season, which I hope will spur once again drastic changes to this roster, because you're not starting against Austin P or some D3 school. You're starting with the best. So, y'all, that's going to do it for me. Let me know your thoughts, your feedback. Do you agree, disagree with me? What changes do you think have to be made? Is it the entire staff? Is it certain coaches? Is it just 1 or 2? Like I said, I could see 30-plus players being off this team and replaced. It could be like a Colorado 2.0 rebuild, which I thought was crazy at the time, but you kind of see what Deion's doing, and things seem to be working. Now, he does have a generational quarterback in his son, and he has Travis Hunter, who's a generational player, and those are the type of players that Florida State hasn't been landing. So I don't know if that formula doesn't work as much if you don't have those type of players and you can't recruit as well as he can in certain areas. But I wouldn't be against, like I said, I'm all for drastic changes, because Mike Norvell is getting paid way too much for not making drastic changes at this point. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. I will see you soon. We'll talk the Notre Dame game upcoming very soon. Have a great week. Stay safe. Talk soon.